Welcome back to the Indie Spotlight Podcast. I am your host, Mike Odyssey, and I have very, very incredibly special guests here with me today, all the way from Wayforward Games. We have Valdi Way and Adam Tierney. Thank you so much for being here with me. How are you doing today?
Good. Doing great. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you guys know, there's no need to explain who they are. You guys know who they are. You played their games. Shante, you guys can see Shante in my background right there. I mean, Wayforward, the shirt is available if you want to purchase it and everything. They were even featured at the office back behind Voldy. That's where we had the great scene filmed from The Office and that triangle pyramid little tablet they were trying to sell in one of the episodes. If you are a fan of The Office, you know what I'm talking about. And they're here with us. So thank you so much for being here. Let's get into the podcast. All right. So Voldy, first, thank you again for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little background here, and how did Wayforward come to be?
Sure. It all started when I was 12. And I'll try to keep this brief. But my friend got a Commodore 64, and we just became obsessed. I would spend all my waking moments at his house until his parents kicked me out at night. And that's where I learned how to program. Mm-hmm. And then I did other programming up through the 80s, but it was on my 20th birthday that I thought, okay, I'm 20 now.
Yeah.
What am I doing with my life? I loved games. I'd been programming them as a hobby for years. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'll have a go at it and see, and this was in 1990, so the game industry was very different then. But I thought, I'll try it out. If it doesn't work out, I can always go out and get a real job. But so far, it's been 34 years, and I haven't had to get a real job. So.
That's good. You're living your dream. You're living what you want to do. That's awesome, right? I love how you refer to it like, I'm getting a real job. This is not a real job, because that's only when you know that you're living your passion. Because when you do your passion, it doesn't feel like work at all, even though it is a job. But because you're passionate about it, it just doesn't feel like a job. So I love that way you refer to. Yeah, I haven't gotten a real job, because even though it is a job, it's in your mind is like, I'm just living my passion here. So that's so awesome. That's so awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Adam, with Wayforward, how did you start with Wayforward, and where were you beginning when it comes to game development and gaming?
So I was actually kind of an early Wayforward super fan. When I think Shante came out, I was already a big fan from IGN Pocket, Craig Harris, promoting that, early games like Extreme Sports and Wendy the Witch. So I had visited the studio a few times. They weren't too far from where I lived. And I started getting into game dev around 2000 or so, right after I graduated college, started doing a variety of pixel art and animation for just various different studios, but not Wayforward. And Matt Bozon and I, again, going back to IGN, both used to hang out on the IGN message boards. And he saw me talking about some of my work and said, "Oh, you should come work with us." And so I started talking with him, started talking to Voldy. And around 2004, 20 years ago now, I dropped by their studio and started working for them freelance on a Batman math leapfrog game. This was the first thing I worked on with them, and then just loved it and enjoyed working with them. Then got fully hired a little less than a year later, and since then I've directed over a dozen games there, and now I head up biz dev and publishing for the company as well.
That's fantastic. That is awesome. I love the history. I love to hear about, how did these creative minds come together? Because, I mean, to know how far Wayforward has come from the 90s all the way to now and the history behind it, even to a point where you worked on a game like Ninja Turtles, right? It's like, man, I grew up on Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles to me is iconic, right? And so, how was that?
Yeah, many Ninja Turtle games.
Quite a few. In fact, do you remember those plug and play toys that you would buy like at Walmart or something? And it was like a gun. or like a controller with a game built in. We did
Jack Specific did a lot of those.
Yeah, we did those. We did more Leapfrog Ninja Turtles. We did. We have done, of course, the one with Activision. We've done
a
quite
console
a few.
one. We did a 3DS one. It was either DS or 3DS, but quite a few Turtles games over the years.
Yeah, quite a few.
Tell me about the first one. When you first found out, like the first time you knew you were doing a turtle game, how did that feel?
Was it the plug and play games, Voldy, or was it?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was the plug and play games.
Okay, so I helped out a little bit on those.
Yeah.
There were two games. One of them was a light gun game, and I remember for fans of the brand, the light gun I think looked like a Triceraton light gun. It had like the triangular shape, and that was kind of like a Hogan's Alley style. It was kind of mow 'em down thing. But the really interesting one was the plug and play action platformer, and it was, for my mind, just really well done. Like the animation looked phenomenal, the gameplay looked great. You could play as the 4 different turtles, and it really didn't look similar to a typical plug and play game. It was much closer to like a modern, at the time, like GBA style game. And I remember, we did a lot of like plug and play stuff. We did a lot of educational stuff, but I think the hallmark of a Wayforward game is those would have the quality of like a traditional boxed Nintendo game, but you're just getting it on these odd little like secondary kind of like systems.
Man, that's interesting. I did not know you guys worked on plug and plays too. I played a lot of those games because they were just so convenient. You just got them, and they came with the little controller or the little pad there. You just plug it into your TV, and then just brought up the game. That's pretty cool. And was there any difference between developing for those plug and plays and then for actual consoles? Was there any? What was the difference there?
Well, then it was at least on the art side, it was pretty limited, even on Game Boy Advance, which is what we were working on. So I don't think there was that much difference. There might have been a couple of limitations on like palettes or something, but Boldy, I mean, you could answer it. I would imagine it's substantially different from the coding side, right?
Yeah, well, the downside to plug and play is they're very limited chips. The chips themselves contain the whole game system, and they have to be cost less than, like, I think a couple dollars because they're packaged with a controller, right? So they're very limited. On the plus side, we did get some influence because they were all custom chips. Every toy out there is a custom variation. It was Sun Plus, but Sun Plus had a lot of options. So we were able to go in and say, we want the 256 color palette version, but we don't need like the extra RAM. We need this, but we need a save slot. Like, we were able to kind of pick and choose like our custom little game console. So it was limited. Like, we didn't have just all the options, but we were able to pick and choose the ones that were most important to us.
Kind of a side story to that just popped it back into my brain that was kind of interesting. We did a lot of Leapfrog games, a lot of like edutainment style games. And the way that they do those is they basically, because they want to get kids to play them, they also want to sell them to parents by saying, hey, this will teach your kid how to do math better, English, whatever. And the way they did it was really fascinating. It was completely compartmentalized. So basically, we would just make an awesome SpongeBob brawler action game, like very similar to like modern River City Girls and stuff we're doing. And then they would have an educational expert giving us all the curriculum that we dropped in. So even though it was an educational game, we weren't coming up with the stuff. That was like very formal, like very established people. And then they would basically just put together the game dev and the educational components. And, we would code it, but we wouldn't figure out any of the curriculum at all. That was just fed to us.
Wow, that's extremely interesting. Like, you guys will come up with the game, then have an educator come in and then just kind of give you lessons, and then you would then implement it into the game.
Yeah, in fact, I kind of remember from early, like I said, the very first one I worked on was Batman, which is a math title. And I remember hearing at the time, you probably heard this, Voldy, we would talk to Leapfrog and we would say, oh, like, what if we worked the math into the gameplay a little bit? And they were like, no, just like, do your gameplay, we'll put everything in. But they didn't want us to do like math-themed gameplay. They just wanted awesome gameplay, and then they would put the math in.
Man.
Yeah, we did quite a few games with Leapfrog, for Batman, Ninja Turtles, Spider-Man, and their philosophy was you have the curriculum, and then you play the game. So the curriculum, you think of it as the two main things were it's either going to be like a mini game challenge, like in order to unlock this door you have to do curriculum, and they would just plug in whatever curriculum they wanted. It could be English, it could be math, it could be whatever. And then that would unlock it. So you think of them as mini games. The other thing was grinding for currency. Like we did this Leapfrog Everywhere project where we developed like 200 little mini games for it, and basically the curriculum was the way you would grind for currency, which you could then use, to buy augments or enhance your character and stuff like that. So they were pretty smart about keeping the gameplay and the curriculum separate.
And it might seem kind of odd for a Wayforward fan to say, "Oh, you guys did like educational stuff." But before I got to the company, so correct me if I'm wrong, Goldie, you started with a console game with Mickey's Ultimate Challenge, but then for almost a decade after that, the vast majority of work from Wayforward, from Mickey's Ultimate Challenge until stuff like Extreme Sports and Shante, was mostly either edutainment or like PC CD-ROM stuff, right?
So I was working on Mickey's Ultimate Challenge for Super Nintendo, and then Sega Genesis, Game Boy Black and White, and Game Gear. And that's when I teamed up with Matt Bozon, who's our creative director, and Robbie Cannon, who's also he's directed bunches of our games, plus he does animation and things like that. And what happened was, in 1994, there was an earthquake right while we were in crunch time finishing up that game. And so that's why I moved to Santa Clarita. And because the freeway collapsed and it was almost impossible to drive out there. So I just ended up sleeping on their couch. They were roommates at the time for the last few months of the project. And that kind of when I won't say fell in love, but with Santa Clarita, but that's why I moved out here. So anyway, that kind of kicked it off. Like, but then after that, as an experiment, one of our distributors had these educational books, and I was just learning Visual Basic, which was a programming language back then, and so I used some of their books just to get just as a test. And then I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I sent it off to the company that published the books, and they loved it, American Education Publishing. And so they ended up selling a bunch of these. We would put the games on floppy disks, and they would sell them through bookstores like Barnes and Nobles and Borders and like traditional bookstores. And that's kind of what kicked off the educational part. And then we did a whole bunch of them for a couple years until I think like 97 is when we went back into doing mostly games. We were ramping up our Game Boy Color, like our Pocket division. We did a lot of Game Boy Color games back then and Game Boy Advanced, and still continued on PC games. But so there was a few years where we did a lot of educational games.
And I find it extremely interesting. The reason because between my wife and I, we have over 30 years of experience in education. My wife is a special needs teacher for 25 years now. That's how we met, actually. That's when we got married. We were both ESE teachers, special needs. And so she used a lot of Leapfrog video games in her lesson plans and to teach and everything. So just getting to know a little bit of the process behind these games that we've been using a lot to teach these kids is just fascinating to me. So yeah, I'm not cutting any of it. It's all going in.
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe one or two of those games she used was one of the ones we made, because they also, Dave, didn't always put Wayforward very prominent. Sometimes it had a logo. Sometimes it was more kind of like you wouldn't really know unless you saw some.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know if they put our logo on. Did they? Because we weren't done.
Some did. The SpongeBob one, I think, did, because that was a very GBA-like game. It depended on the console, I think.
Yeah, we worked with Leapfrog for years.
Yeah. That is awesome. That is incredibly awesome, and I love hearing it. And so we got some questions, some interesting questions to ask here when it comes to, let's talk a little bit about Shante here, because I know you guys developed Shante, which is your it's like your girl, right? That's the bread and butter of Wayforward, Shante. And so there are the people who created Shante, and then there are people who made Shante, who brought it to life, right? And so can you talk to us about who created Shante, right? And then how did Shante come to life? What was that process like?
Sure. Yeah, I can start because, when I first started working with Matt Bozon, he was a student at Cal Arts. And, for those listening who don't know, Cal Arts, it's California Institute of the Arts, and it was founded by Disney to train animators to work at Disney.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So both Matt and Aaron were students there at the time, and so was Rob too at the same time. And they had created Shante already, and so this was their baby. But they went to make a game, and so we worked a deal so that the game, like all the game rights, are ours, and then all the other rights, whether it's merchandising or TV shows or whatever, that's all Matt and Aaron. And it's been great because we've now shipped 6 games. The Shante games plus she's kind of like unofficially become our mascot just because we've done so much. And also she was our test case. Like whenever we wanted to test out new technology, we would test it out with Shante because we had all the animation or with stuff that we could use. So if you look at a lot of our tech demos throughout the years, there's always Shante in there. She was just always in there.
Yeah, I remember for programmers, correct me if I'm wrong, you would basically give them a little package of here's character, here's a background, and just let them do whatever they want to gauge their creativity. And the way that I got hired as an animator initially is Matt Bozon gave me a sprite of the mermaid Shante, and I had to do an animation sequence for her. So for a while, yeah, that was also kind of the go-to to get into the company as either a programmer or an animator. And then oftentimes, especially the second game, Risky's Revenge, was in development for a pretty lengthy period. A lot of that was in between the cracks of other games. So somebody would finish their game as an animator or programmer, and then they would go work on a few things on Risky's Revenge, and then hop back onto the next project.
Yeah, I think that one took us 8 years or something to get out. Not because we spent 8 years on it, but it was like, you know how your personal projects at home sometimes take a backseat, like you get busy at work and they go on hold. That's kind of how it was because we were self-funding it. So it was like something we'd work on in between the cracks. I think the first one, I want to say it was either Pirate's Curse, but maybe not even Pirate's Curse, because that one I think went on hold a few times while we got busy on other stuff. I think the first one that we actually were able to focus on uninterrupted was Half Genie Hero, because that was a Kickstarter. And so it's like we had backers that we had promised this. So that one we just kind of worked on as like a full production. Yeah. But the other ones we worked on between the cracks.
And then Shantae's making a return with Risky Revolution now, correct?
Yep, it is.
This is a GBA game kind of remastered and released on Switch and other consoles?
So it started as the original second game, so Risky's Revenge, which came out on DSiWare, I believe, was the second game released in the series. But before that, and actually before I even worked at the company, I remember I got to visit the company at one point and have lunch, and Matt let me play the current demo at that time of Shante GBA. And so this is something that people were aware of, even publicly, like when we did streams during Kickstarter, we would play through the demo, and it's like, it's like 30 to 60 minutes long. It's pretty beefy.
I think it was like 2 hours by the end because we kept adding stuff. We worked on it for a long time. I mean, I think for a first-time player would probably there was like 2 hours of content.
Yeah. But because everybody knew about it, it was something that Matt and Aaron Bozon always wanted to get back to. And so finally we work a lot with limited run games on the Shante series. They're our physical publisher.
Your shirt?
Yeah.
Limited run shirt.
and they were interested, and Matt said, hey, what if we did that old game? Because limited run publishes a lot of GBA games now. Some of them are reproduction, some of them are brand new. And so they were interested, and that's been his project for the past, better part of a year. It's pretty much wrapped up now on the GBA front. We're now working on porting it to the modern consoles, the Switch and PlayStation and Xbox. And so there's going to be some improved features because it's still got the chunky GBA pixels, but stuff like the character portraits are higher resolution, and the fidelity of the audio and stuff like that. So it'll be a little more console appropriate. But yeah, the GBA one it was wild working on a platform we really haven't touched in almost 20 years.
Wow. That is awesome. And do you have a release date yet for other consoles, or not yet?
No, just early next year, early 2025.
Okay. Yeah, I mean we're almost at the end of 2024. It is October. The wait is going to be around the corner. So very, very soon we'll have those games around. Multiple. Is it Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation, and Steam? Yes. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, guys. So stay tuned. Also, we also have some digital codes here that were given by Wayforward for Steam, and these codes are for River City Girls 2. So if you guys want to stick around, all you gotta do is just enter a comment down below and let me know what is your favorite game from Wayforward. That's all you gotta do. I can pick you and give you one of those Steam codes. You guys can enjoy River City Girls 2. Plus, there's a DLC that has 2 more characters. You guys want to talk about those 2 characters?
Yeah, I just saw yesterday the final version of the launch trailer, which is going to be coming out very soon.
Yeah,
when the game is released, also very soon. We don't have a publicly announced date, but it's going to be very, very, very soon, and it's great. I mean, the animations of Billy and Jimmy are amazing. We've got Aaron Hansen and Dan Avedon from Game Grumps back voicing them, just like they did in the shop, but now they've got tons of dialogue because you can put them in the whole story, everywhere the other characters are. And Aaron and Danny did a hilarious rap in character, and we teased a little bit of it at Anime Expo and put a little chunk online. The launch trailer is going to have a lot more of it, and we're also going to release it as a digital song single via Megan McDuffie, who did most of the music for the series. She did the background music for it. So
yeah,
by the time the DLC comes out, the song will come out. It's hilarious, and it's just a lot of stuff we wanted to do. I mean, we've always wanted to do DLC for this. The Lee Brothers made sense just because everybody knows Double Dragon. Double Dragon is more popular in the U.S. than Kunio-kun River City.
Yeah.
And we love Aaron and Danny's performance as them. And then also we got to put in a few other things in this as well. So we put in one thing I really wanted to do for a long time, which is a seasonal shopkeeper. So you think of like Spirit Halloween store kind of a thing. There's now going to be a shop in this DLC that you can go there, and throughout the year it'll change. So Christmas time, it'll have a special item you can only get during then. Around Easter time, around Halloween time, kind of looking at like what they did with the seasonal items in Animal Crossing on Switch. I wanted to replicate that and do something where people would a couple times a year say, "Oh, I got to boot up the game. I haven't played it in a while because I got to get that item." So we've got that and various other cool little additions, some of which have not been announced yet. We've got a really cool voice actor for that shopkeeper, has not been announced yet, and then a really nice crossover with another IP that I think fans of River City Girls might know pretty well. That's also going to be revealed soon as well. So lots of cool stuff in there, in addition to Billy and Jimmy as full playable characters.
Oh man, that's. This game is going to be huge. It's going to be big. I wasn't expecting all this information. Thank you. That is awesome. There's a big market now for collectible items and people who want to collect items depending on the season. So I know it's going to be a big part of the game. I know I am the kind of guy like, no, I have to go back because I can't let that one pass. I can't let that little feature or that little outfit or this pass, even if it's seasonal. So that's going to be a really cool part of the game. So guys, I wish I had the release date. It's gonna be early next year. Stay tuned to Wayforward on social.
This is way before next year. This is coming in the next few weeks, month. This is coming soon.
Wow!
And the other thing that's really cool is everybody. I can reveal this for the first time here. People saw it when we previewed the game at LA Comic-Con a few weeks ago. So everybody who has a copy of River City Girls 2, you're going to get an update once that DLC comes out. And there's a little button at the bottom that shows the Lee Brothers. If you click on that, you get to see an intro that explains how they'll be entering the city, why they're playable. So even before you get the DLC, we got a brand new motion comic, full VO, Aaron and Danny, hilarious scene of them basically saying, we should get out there. We should be kicking butt too. It's a really funny little thing. And then basically everybody will get that for free in the update with some of the features. Some of the features are tied to the paid DLC. Some people are getting some of them just as a free update. So, but yeah, everybody just boot up City 2 once the DLC is available, and you get that nice little scene with the brothers, and then you can, hopefully purchase them and get them into the game too. Because I love what Dan and the director did with them as far as their attacks and everything. If any of you grew up on Double Dragon 2, Double Dragon Arcade, it taps into so many of those moves and so much of that history.
Wow, that is fantastic. I love that fact that we're going to get an introduction and how they got to enter the world, like this crossover.
Yeah, it's a really funny scene.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's awesome. Thank you for giving us that exclusive information. Yeah. You know what? I think I need to release this podcast sooner than later. How we can get that information out there. But that is incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that information with us. I'm pretty sure that our viewers right now are super excited. And if you have not gotten Riverside City Girl, Riverside, did I say it right? Because I'm always like twisting the words.
River City Girls 2.
River City Girls 2. I said Riverside. Why did I say Riverside? Probably because it's Florida and it's hot.
Right. There's a Riverside out here, just like an hour from here.
Really?
I don't know if you have a Riverside.
We did.
That was my college.
Oh, you went to college in Riverside?
Yeah.
Huh.
So basically, a couple minutes from here, the river that we have here is called Riverside. You have a Riverside College. So guess what? It's all meant to be. Riverside.
Exactly.
River City Girls. All right. So we got some questions here. A couple of questions that we want to go over. Some deep questions, some fun questions, right? You want to start with the fun questions?
Sure.
All right. So imagine you're creating an entirely new game genre. Okay. What would it be? And why do you think the world needs it?
Yeah.
Second person shooter. No, I stole that from Hoth.
Our head of marketing said that second person shooter. So you don't see yourself. You only see yourself through the scope of people trying to kill you.
Yeah, and you're only getting shot at.
What? That's interesting.
No, it would be.
No, that would be a good one. What we do a lot of like genre mashups. So I think that is always fun when we can do that. Kind of the extreme example of that is we had a game a couple of years ago called Cat Girl Without Salad. It was like a parody game, and then we ended up releasing it. And that was that's a shooter, but then your guns are all of the different game genres. So it's like there's a Dance Dance Revolution game, and there's a Bubble game, and there's a Tetris game. Like there's all these different things that are based on other genres mixing together. And what we wanted to do with that, if we ever did like a full version, because the one that was released is only like an hour long, is get every genre you could ever think of. So somewhere we have a list of here's 30 different genres, and here's how we would get them all together. So it's not quite the exact answer, but mine would be I would want to do a game that just crams them all together in a weird way.
Yeah, call the genre the mashup. The mashup genre.
Yeah.
I like it. And how about you, Aldi?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I'm leaving that one to Adam.
I can answer for him. So because we've had so many conversations, we would really, surprisingly, we've never really done that much of it as far as getting into genres. Not a new genre per se, but we do so much story development in our games. We constantly talk, especially me and Voldy, about the possibility of doing something more story driven, like a Telltale style game, or more on the visual novel front. Maybe something that's like those, but has a little more of a gaminess to it, or a mini gaminess to it. But that's kind of a whole subgenre Wayforward's never really gotten into, is something where it's really entirely story driven. And we've tried to a few times. We've pitched it a few times. We had a couple opportunities that almost happened, but yet to date, nothing where we've gone 100% in on the story front.
Yeah, I know that's not an entirely new genre. It's out there, but it is new to us, and also we've talked about a lot in regard to VR. I'm a big VR enthusiast. I backed the original Kickstarter for Oculus, and have all the devices, and some of my Half-Life Alyx is one of my favorite games of all time. I love VR, and it seems like a perfect opportunity to do storytelling like that.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about it a lot, but we just haven't. VR is a tough market. It didn't, but one of these days we'll do some story-driven VR experience.
That'd be crazy. Here's an idea. You know that 2D, 3D genre that's kind of rising up now. I think Octopath Traveler game is like that in 2D, 3D. How about a VR game in a 2D, 3D world.
Like a side scroller, you mean? Like
More like you're in the world, but every character is in that 8-bit type of
pixely style.
Oh, okay. So it's VR, but all the characters are. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you look at the world. Yeah, the world has some 3D elements because the flat world, like the buildings, are there, but then also the characters and anything that's alive, like a tree, is in that 8-bit kind of like coming out at you texture.
Voldy is also a big proponent on the Wayforward end, and I don't think we've worked on it yet. Yeah. You love voxel style artwork, and we haven't had a chance to do that.
I do. I'm partial to that. And I don't mean Minecraft necessarily where they rotate. I like the true voxels where all the blocks are the same angle. Like they don't, I don't know, I'd have to.
The whole thing is grid based, yeah.
Yeah, everything's grid based and not like Minecraft. Mm-hmm. But yeah, something like that. We should add that to the list. A pixel VR game. Yeah. We actually had like an experiment where we took our DuckTales game and we put it in VR just as a test. Mm-hmm. And so you could like it was weird because it was like you were watching this really long, like not quite infinite, but super long screen, and you would look around and then you would see like so you could move, you could move your character around in a VR thing. I mean, it didn't really make sense. It was mostly just a tech demo, just as an experiment. We have all kinds of weird stuff like that floating around the office, but
that's awesome because you have to experience weird things in order to come to that one idea that's gonna just break the mold, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. So, in that, have you ever come? So, can you share a story if you have, where you've had, let's say, a happy accident or something that happened accidentally into a development process that eventually turned out into a feature or something that just kind of, oh wait, this happened by accident, but you know what? It feels good. Let's just put it in the game.
The one that springs to mind for me is I don't know how long it was ago, maybe 10 years, 12 years ago, whatever it was, where we did a Silent Hill game, and we did the one on PlayStation Vita. Yeah. And it was basically like the MMO style game. It looked like, or it's like the Diablo MMO, not MMO, but online multiplayer game. It was very weird. It was like, think of like 4-player Diablo teenagers running around in Silent Hill, auto-generated worlds and stuff. And one of our directors, James Montagna, on that game, he was working on weapon balancing. And so you have all the typical Silent Hill stuff like crowbars and axes and blades and stuff. And anybody who knows that brand knows the theme park mascot, Robbie the Rabbit. James took a Robbie model, because it was all 3D game, from one of the cutscenes and he boned it to the player's hand and used that as a test weapon. And so everybody was running around, and so anytime he would need to like kill enemies really quickly, he could set up like super high in the value or super low in the value of damage. And people on the team loved that Robbie the Rabbit doll so much that we ended up having to add it to the game. And we added it so now when you hit people, stuffing comes out and it makes a squeaky sound. It's a really weird weapon too, because it does almost no damage but total knockback. So you're basically knocking people around with like no damage, but you want to bring them out of your way. And so that was one where it was not on any of the designs or lists or anything, but just because everybody loved it as a debug feature, we had to put it in the game at some point.
That's crazy. Can you think about anything, Waldy? Happy, you know how?
Not really. I think Adams is a good one.
Yeah.
Stick with that one.
Because it happens everywhere. Like when somebody's filming a movie, like actor just kind of says a line, and that line is not part of the script, but just fits so well, or a joke. I know Robert Downey Jr. does this a lot, and all of our favorite actors kind of improvise lines here and there. Same thing happens in the gaming world. You know, sometimes you're improvising. You're working on a game, and something just comes along, and you know what? This just feels right. Let's put it in that game.
So, a lot of the best stuff happens very organically. Like in River City Girls, I think one of the most memorable things is when you're doing 2-player, when one character dies, their ghost floats up, and if you run over to their body and just start beating on their body, it sucks the ghost back in, gives them a second chance at gameplay. That wasn't in any of the initial documents. Like myself and Bannon,
Mhm.
We knew we wanted to do some sort of like a revive mechanic, but it was just kind of messing around. And he was the one that remembered, remember in the dodgeball game from Kunio-kun, when characters got knocked out, a little ghost would fly up. And so we kind of started toying with that. But
Yeah.
some of the most memorable stuff, or even like the hug button from
I was gonna say that wasn't necessarily an accident, although it was something
it wasn't in the original pitches. That came on later. Yeah.
Right, and we were actually going to take it out because it serves absolutely no gameplay use at all. I mean, we kicked around, maybe it should do something like boost some stats or something, but it's like, nah, we're just going to take it out. But then leaving it in, like being pointless, I think was the best thing we did, because everyone talks about that hug button.
Yes.
Especially because it does nothing. It serves no purpose other than it's just a little animation of you hugging your blob.
Mhm.
But it was something that like I think everyone talked about. So
that's awesome. So, in that line of creativity, how things just pop up and everything. And is there anything you guys do? Do you guys have any traditions? Any like, for example, superstitions or rituals that you do? Before a game releases, or right before you start planning or having a meeting? Is there anything that you guys have a tradition of within Wayforward as a family that you guys there?
I mean, it's not a very interesting answer. I'll answer on the before we start working on a game, but we do a deep dive on all of the pre-existing materials. So if it's like based on a movie, we'll watch every movie. If it's based on comic books, we'll read every comic book. I mean, we'll just because we want to have in our head like, this guy would be good for an enemy, somebody from like this obscure issue or from the second or third movie or something. That was really useful when we did the Aliens game on Nintendo DS. We really looked at the first and second movie, especially from Ridley Scott and James Cameron.
Yeah.
And the game was basically supposed to be kind of a sequel to the James Cameron movie. And so rewatching it, we realized like, this is basically just like a slasher movie. Like spends half the movie introducing you to all the Marines, and then it kills them off one by one. And so we structured the whole game around that. Like the whole idea on that game was like, let's do a game where you were supposed to keep finding Marines and they keep dying over and over. Normally with a game, you don't want to do that. You want to do a game where it's just like, oh no, you can hold on to everybody forever. No one's going to die. We did a game where you're not forced to die, but it's very likely because of the challenge that you will. And we did that because of the James Cameron movie. We wanted you to fall in love with these characters, give them unique dialogue, all this stuff, so that when they got killed, you were like, oh man, that sucks, the same way that it did in the movie. So for me, like any production is always just, if there's a pre-existing IP, really doing like deep work on everything you can get. What are the weapons? What are the enemies? What are the humans? What are the backstories? So that people that are super fans of it feel like you're not just kind of half-assing the adaptation.
Yeah, I love it.
We were talking just earlier today, like we've got a couple of things that we've kind of done as we've wrapped projects recently.
Yeah. We this isn't really a ritual. It's more of a tradition that came up recently when one of our programmers, Matthew Greenfield, he got a 3D printer. And so he started, like, we would have a wrap party after the game, and he would 3D print like little, toys or figures or something from the games. And then we expanded it into cookies, so we found a local bakery. So now the wrap parties, we always have like, characters from the games there. And we always get permission because, our, Hoff, or community manager, like puts, likes to post pictures. So of course we have to get permission now, because some of them might be like, oh no, you can't put our character on a cookie,
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been a tradition, and it's kind of fun.
It is. It's always fun, like a wrap party with like a cookie with the design of the game on it.
Yeah, so he'll 3D print like cake decorations, like they're little plastic, 3D printed things that go in the cake to make it look like, themed like the game, and then we'll have cookies and cupcakes and other things that have actual images and stuff from the game.
That's pretty cool. Literally putting like a cherry on top of the game and celebrating the success. So that's awesome. That is awesome. A lot of the IPs you guys have worked on are already in the mainstream. Ninja Turtles is already brought in the mainstream. Double Dragon, Aside from those, and is there any other game within the games you've worked at, whether it's from Wayforward Studios or any other studio you think deserves more like a bigger spotlight, maybe get a movie, a TV show made of it so that it kind of reaches a bigger audience?
That's a good question. I mean, our most popular games tend to be the Shante games and the River City Girls games. So those, I don't know that those necessarily are like begging for a bigger audience, because their audience is already pretty big. But I would say definitely both of those. People really want to see comic books. People really want to see movies, especially like anime style movies of both of those. I think those are probably the two that make the most sense. I know way back when, remember, Voldy, we were talking about maybe doing webtoons based on the Cat Girl. So I have a little script of like what those would have been. Because the very first thing that we actually produced on the Cat Girl thing was we never released it either. It was like a little internal motion comic thing, fully voiced with Christina and everything. So I think that's a brand that could work for that kind of stuff. I don't know. What do you think? Anything?
Yeah, well, I know Matt and Aaron, one of their like life goals, is to have a Shante TV series or movie or both. So if you have any connections that can help them make that happen, that is one of their dreams. So, and I think they'll achieve it. One of these days, Shante will appear on a screen, like in a TV show or a movie. And then, as far as the, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but Adam is a TV show writer. He's written, that show Teen Titans Go? He's actually,
what?
He wrote 2 episodes of Teen Titans Go. He's like,
okay, so I'm officially a fan of you, Adam.
Yeah, he's a writer.
Only 2 though. I'd love to write more, but yeah.
Yeah, he's he won an award for his Batman Brave and the Bold script. It was like a 400-page script, and it won like best script, I think.
It was best creative license at like GameStop.
Wow.
GameSpot.
Yeah.
But no, that was kind of an interesting game, our Batman game, because that was where we really started shifting to doing like heavy VO and animating the characters just like they were in the cartoon. So now we always kind of called it like playable cartoons.
Yeah.
Now that's like almost half the games Wayforward does have that sort of like, hey, it just feels like you're playing the cartoon sort of a thing.
Oh, and just one more thing about expanding the audience. So River City Girls actually had a stage play completely done, and then it happened. It was during quarantine, right? So it ended up getting shelved because like no one could go.
It was even sadder than that. It was like, I think it was coming out of COVID in Japan, and so it would have happened, but then I think some of the cast got COVID, and then it just tanked the whole production. So yeah, it was a bummer. They had, like, we got to see photos of the live action actors. They were all based on like our character designs. Yeah, that was a huge bummer.
Yeah, and the plan was they were going to do the theatrical the stage play, and then we were going to get footage, and then we were going to eventually release like maybe a DVD of it here, or at least some like bonus features.
Yeah, the idea was we were going to take the recording of the stage play, which is all spoken Japanese. We were going to redub it with the English actors from the game, and then release that as like the River City Girls movie, essentially on DVD. But unfortunately, it was not to be.
I mean, hopefully it gets done in some future. Right now, we are in the precipice of a new revolution of movies inspired by video games. I know, let's not talk about the Mario movie in the 90s. I liked it all the time. But ever since they say the Sonic movie, we got Mario making another movie. We have other movies out there who have flopped, some do well. But it feels like we are there. We're kind of at the beginning where Marvel was at the beginning with superhero movies before the Marvel universe began with Iron Man and the Hulk. I think we're kind of there now when it comes to video game movies because of the theme parks, because of all the exposure that video games are getting now. It's the perfect time to kind of, think about that. Hey, Shante will actually really be awesome on the big screen. Not only that, but that movie would also kind of bring more players on the Shante, video games as well. And who knows that inspires a bigger world for Shante to kind of explore. So, and I'm just hoping that we that we see her on the big screen and see a lot of other characters as well, because we're there. It's happening.
Yeah, right? we'd love to see it happen. Fingers crossed.
We would. Speaking of big screen and Shante,
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if you know, but Trigger did the animation for the Seven Sirens intro sequence, and so when they released their film, I'm blanking on the name. Adam, do you remember the name of the one? Anyway, their film right after that, as a theatrical release, they would show every time it would show on this in the theaters, they would put the Shante, that intro sequence. So it was like free advertising for us, but it was like just really cool seeing Shante on the big screen in a theater, theatrical release.
Yeah, we coordinated with the theater on that, and we got Shante would play. It was before Promare, the Trigger
Promare, yes.
fighting movie, and then before Weathering with You, we had River City Girls also. So it was really cool to get trailers for our games displayed on in a theater right before anime games, because both those anime movies, because both those games feel very anime in style.
And it must have been exciting to see it's on the big screen. Did they show the Wayforward logo also?
I think so, because it was just our trailers. Yeah, so it'd start with that.
Yep. That is awesome. That is fantastic. And so guys, petitions. You guys have to. All the fans have the power, right? You go on Twitter, you put hashtag Shante Movie, or whatever. Just make it trend, because when you guys have more power than you think. So make it happen. We're almost there. There's gonna be an explosion of video game movies that are gonna come. Some gonna flop, some might not, but it's just gonna happen. It's gonna be great. Hopefully we get there. And then Shante, we can see her on the big screen as well. Maybe live action. Who knows? Nothing is impossible.
Yeah, and if any of you work for like Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or any of those networks, then and have some pull like Shante, River City Girls, any of those would be awesome.
That would be awesome. That would be
too.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And so, as in the indie game genre, I've spoken to I think over 100 developers already over the I would say past a couple of months, and they all want to hear from you, from Wayforward, from Adam, from Voldy, because you guys are their role models. You guys are their heroes too, because you've made it. What you've made has been an inspiration to a lot of them. And I'm like, well, you have Wayforward part of the show. That's fantastic. That is awesome. And I'm like, what will be a question you guys would like to ask them? And so I have the question right here. And so, what advice would you give to aspiring game developers who want to follow in your footsteps?
You go first. You founded the company.
Oh, okay. Well, I have to say, this is the best time in history to be an aspiring game developer, because all the tools are out there. They're free. Like the Unity, Unreal 5, the games use the tools used by the biggest game publishers, the biggest games are all free, and there are so many resources like tutorials, code. There are so many resources to get you started that really there's absolutely no excuse to not just go ahead and make a game. I mean, there was a long time before digital downloads where we would work on stuff like Shante. The reason the Risky Revolution didn't come out until now was because we couldn't find a publisher for it, because, you had to manufacture it. It was really expensive. But now, basically, anyone can make a game, put it up on Steam or the App Store or whatever. So really, I think my biggest advice is to just, do something, because a lot of people... I've heard feel like they need, I don't know, more education, or they need more to start a company. No, don't even start a company. Just make something and get it out there. And also, if you just want practice and you're not sure where to start, enter a game jam, because you will get that. That's like boot camp. In fact, enter as many game jams as you can, because that is seriously like boot camp to get you started. And the people that are on your team with you, they'll be friends for life, and potentially valuable resources. Like if they go out and make their own indie game, or let's say they just get hired somewhere, but they remember you because they liked working with you during the game jam, so they'll recommend that you get hired there as well. So So yeah, I guess that's 2 pieces of advice. Just get started, watch YouTube tutorials, just do something. And then 2, maybe get in game jams. So, because that's a good networking opportunity as well.
That is amazing advice, straight from the pros, guys. Straight from the pros. And I got another question for Adam as a writer. There are a lot of writers out there who would love to write not only for Teen Titans, really, for real, really. I'm like, that's crazy. But also for video games. What advice would you have for them to get started and get into the world of writing content for video games?
It's probably a harder role to get into externally, just because a lot of studios, and you see it's like first and foremost with places like Rockstar, where the Hauser brothers were like writing all of their stuff. A lot of the game designer directors like to write. Most of our directors like to write their own products. So I think it's a harder role to get into than maybe just an artist or an animator or a programmer, where we're always looking for stuff like that. That said, I know that's just kind of how it is with Wayforward. A lot of studios don't have a full-time writer and are looking for people like that. I've done some freelance work with some of our other studios that we're friendly with, doing scripts for things here and there. So I would say, if you want to write for video games specifically, get together like a good resume, get an example of kind of the things that you've written, or examples of your writing capabilities, samples if you're not published yet, and then just start emailing all the companies that you're interested in. Look for the ones that are very, very indie. I don't imagine, if you don't have writing experience in games, you're going to get hired to write it like a Skybound or a Telltale or a Rockstar or a Capcom or something like that. But if you're looking at, look at Kickstarter, look at games that just got greenlit by first-time studios. Look at, on Steam pages, look at other recommended games based on games that you have. A lot of those micro studios would probably love to have somebody who's, great at dialogue and great at plot be a part of the team, and then just hit up as many places as possible. That would be my recommendation.
That's awesome. That is fantastic advice for writers out there. Yeah, it is a hard field to get into, but guess what? It's not impossible. You can do it. Just baby steps on the way. Yeah.
Well, and just to add to that, unless you're like desperate for the money, like offer to write for free, especially for indie games, because there's so many indie games need additional like missions or story. If you just offer to write for free just to get your name in the credits, it'll get your build up your resume and get your name out there. But 2, if those games go on to become really popular, then at some point they might hire you to write like for the sequel or something. And that same applies to composers, because being a composer is tough also. But I remember Jake Kaufman. He basically wrote soundtracks for so many indie games, just for free, or maybe even like a small percentage if the game like was a hit, and it paid off because some of them were hits. So so don't be afraid to write for free unless you're desperate for the cash. I would say get your name out there, volunteer to help,
and just become friendly with them as well. Like we have, we get a lot of, like Voldy mentioned, composers hitting us up saying, "Oh, I really want to work for Wayforward." It's tough just because the folks that we work with regularly, like Dale and Megan and Maddie, they're so good that we just immediately want to work with them on every project. But we're always open to new relationships, and that's what I've noticed is there's one guy in particular, very established composer, we have not worked with yet, or I think we worked with him a little bit, but before we worked with him, he reached out and started, engaging us and saying, "Oh, I love your guys' work, and I know we love your work." And you get to a spot where it's like, okay, well, now this person is in our mind. They're in the mind of the producers and the directors at Wayforward, and so it's only a matter of time before the perfect opportunity comes along. So that's another thing is, if you're a writer, if you're an actor, if you're animator, programmer, musician, whatever, build those relationships with the company. Again, that's basically what I did with Wayforward. I was friends with Matt Bozon and visited them a few times in the year leading up to when I worked for them, and they were just aware of of me and my skills by the time there was an opportunity to do some freelance for them. So like find who you want to work for and just start making a connection, even if it's not initially jumping into a job.
That is fantastic advice. So guys, I'm telling you, you're getting gold right now. Gold. Straight from the top of the mountain, gold. So, all right, I have a question here. This is very interesting. What's next for Wayforward Games? And any exciting projects or announcements in the pipeline?
So I head up publishing, so I can say what we officially and aren't officially doing. So the stuff we have that is still coming out, that is announced already. We just released a couple of great products for other publishers. Yar's Rising for Atari, we're very proud of. We just had the Halloween and Ash vs. Evil Dead games come out. In just about a week or so is coming out Clock Tower Rewind, which we're very proud of. That's taking the original Clock Tower from Super Famicom, bringing it to the US for the first time with a bunch of cool added features. Beyond that, the only two things I think we've announced are, you mentioned before, the console version of Shante Advanced Risky Revolution. That's coming next year. And then also announced publicly that we are porting our Game Boy Advance game, Sigma Star Saga. That's also getting ported to consoles. That's coming next year. Beyond that, we're doing a lot right now, a lot of productions. None of them are announced yet, but I will say it's some of the best licenses we've ever gotten a hold of. We've got like very classic, like super well-known gaming licenses, very cool cartoon and anime licenses. We're working with some really awesome partners. So lots of, I wish I could say like all the stuff that blow your mind, like one after the other. It's just like, oh my gosh, they're doing that, they're doing that, they're doing that. It's one of the best rounds of Wayforward games we've ever had. And then also we're always talking to Arc System Works about what the next River City components are. So we've got the DLC coming up very shortly, but we're already talking about what is River City Girls 3 or what are other types of games we want to do in that universe.
That's fantastic. And don't forget that DLC also comes with that shop that you have that's seasonal. You can get those products. Will there be like outfits, weapons? What type of products are we expecting? Or is that still
I'm struggling to remember exactly what they do, but I remember because we have not added new items in a while. Bannon really went crazy with them, so the gameplay is very fun. They are all accessories, 6 unique items. So I believe that means that you don't just eat it and it's gone. You can save up for it, buy it, and then you can use it forever, and you're just choosing which ones to swap in. But yeah, 6 completely new accessories in the launch trailer coming out soon. You can see that shop. You can see a couple of the items in there, but hopefully the people dig them.
That is amazing information. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. We've gotten value. We've gotten entertainment. It's been incredibly fun. I wanna, Valdi. Wait, where can we find you? Where can people find you if they want to go ahead and follow you on social media? You want to learn more?
I'm pretty terrible at social media. You can always email me, just boldy@wayforward.com. So
me too. Yeah. And Adam, where can we find you and where can we follow you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find Wayforward. We're on Twitter. We're on Blue Sky now. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. Just type in Wayforward. I'm usually popping around there. Adam_Wayforward, I believe, on Twitter. And we also do, for anybody that's on Twitter, we do a weekly Twitter Spaces. It's not a podcast yet, but we're going to turn it into one. We've done, I don't know, like maybe 20 of them so far. Yeah. But every Thursday, including tomorrow, we get together with our followers on Twitter and we'll talk about upcoming games. We'll get special guests. The last episode, we had Megan McDuffie, or 2 episodes ago, from the composer from River City Girls was on there. And so, we're trying to do more of these kind of engagement things on social media to really tap into our fan base. We also have a Discord, official Wayforward Discord.
Awesome.
Again, if you just Google that, you'll find a link to it. Hop in. We've got dedicated rooms based on all our different games, and we have the directors popping in to chat with folks, and trying to do as much engagement as possible.
That's awesome. And I'll go ahead and have links to Wayforward's social media and Discord down below in the description, so you guys can go ahead and access it right away. So awesome. I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you, Voldy. Thank you, Adam, for for spending time here at the I wasn't saying Nintopics Podcast. That's my other podcast, the Indie Spotlight Indie Spotlight Podcast. It was really fun. I had like 100 more questions, but we've been in like exactly an hour on the dot right now, and so I want to have you guys back. Hopefully, we can come back with the full team, right? And
yeah, anytime. And I mean, especially the games we mentioned, like the Double Dragon DLC, the Clock Tower. If you want to do anything themed with those, let us know. We'll get the directors to come and talk directly about the games anytime, man.
I think that's a plan. That sounds like a good plan. We'll plan that out and have them over when it comes to the game, and maybe we can also look at some gameplay, like have a little treehouse gameplay event.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's always super fun chatting with you. So, I mean, definitely save those questions. We'd love to be on anytime you want to have us. We're always around.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Adam and Baldy, one more time. Guys, this is Wayforward. This is not Wayforward Presents. We had the presents over Indie Mania. This is Wayforward here at the Indie Spotlight Podcast. And guess what? The codes. We have the codes to give out. If you want to enter, all you got to do is just comment your favorite Wayforward game down below in the chatty thing where you leave your comments, and I will choose one of you guys out there to get a copy of a game from Wayforward Games. All right, that's it for the Indie Spotlight Podcast featuring Voldy Way and Adam Tierney of Wayforward Games. Never give up. Journey on. Peace.
All right.
Please enter.
Available now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch.